the only book that matters in this regard is the Holy Quran. As a Muslim and as Muslims, and even when dealing with outright extremists and Islamists, there seems to be a preference to discuss ongoing conflict or recent conflict between Muslims and Jews through many lenses except the Holy Quran. They want to look at it from a human rights lens. They want to look at it from a political lens. Who's indigenous to the land? Who came from Europe and who didn't come from Europe? Is Hamas the legitimate ruler of the Palestinians? Is Mahmoud Abbas someone who's a dictator sitting in office for, exceeding his term limit by many years? How exactly do we manage this? No one ever wants to discuss what exactly does the Quran say, because that is the ultimate Islamic constitution. There is no constitution for a Muslim individual higher than the Holy Quran. We are ordered to obey the laws of the countries we live in because the Quran tells us to do so. So we follow what is God's law and not what is man's law as a main priority. And again, we believe that man's law, constitutions that we have, traffic laws, all of these laws that we abide by and we follow on a day-to-day basis, these are laws that are there to organize our affairs. We will not be asked on the Day of Judgment about these man-made laws. We will be asked about whether we violated the Holy Quran or not. This is from a Muslim standpoint. And therefore, we need to always refer back to the Holy Quran, because that is how you put the Islamist in a corner. If you want the Islamists to run around free, then you allow them distance themselves from the Holy Quran. But if you say, no, I want to stick to the Holy Quran, you're a Muslim, this is your identity, and at least I have it between my hands, or I can Google it and I can view it online. This is exactly what you believe in, because you will not dare to oppose it. So let's see what it says. Chapter 5, verse 20 onwards, and I say this, and this is very important, verses 20 onwards is a clear declaration, crystal clear declaration by God Almighty that the Holy Land known as Israel and Jerusalem and Sinai, and it is much greater than the borders of Israel today. All of that was granted to the Jewish people. I'll give you a very quick idea of what this land looks like. If we start from the Gulf of Oman all the way down to where Arabia begins, by the Gulf of Oman, and we go up, we have Saudi Arabia, Oman, Yemen, the UAE, all the way up to the Jordan River. That is Arabia. That is the land of the Arabs. That is where the Arabian tribes originate from. Across the Jordanian River is the land of the Jewish people, and that is Judea. And it comes all the way down to northern Egypt, and it includes many waters, and it includes lands much greater than what the Jews are claiming today. So we need to be very realistic as to how we deal with the Holy Quran, so we do not violate the teachings of the Holy Quran. In these verses 5, chapter 5 to chapter 5, verse 20 onwards, God Almighty says very clearly, and it's an order that he orders Moses, his prophet Moses, to enter the Holy Land, meaning to claim the Holy Land, because the verses also say, and do not retreat and do not leave it. Otherwise, you would be losers. You would lose this struggle for truth versus falsehood. And therefore, the Jewish people were ordered to enter the Holy Land and claim it, meaning Jerusalem. However, because there were tyrants ruling Jerusalem at the time, and there were people who were targeting and killing Jews, some Jews that were part of the congregation of Moses and who were traveling with Moses refrained from entering the Holy Land out of fear that they would be persecuted. And that is a very natural position to have when you are a minority wandering in the desert. Very normal and very natural. And therefore, the Islamist claim here is that God ordered the Jewish people to enter the Holy Land, and they did not enter it. Therefore, they are not entitled to it. And that is nonsense, because what stands is the desire of God. What stands is the order of God, what God wanted to do with that land and who he assigned that land for. And it is very clear that the land was given to the Jewish people. Whether 40, 44, 50 Jews decide to enter or not really doesn't make a difference, because what's important is whether Moses himself entered or not. And God forbid one says that Moses disobeyed God and that he did not enter the land and that he did not claim it for Judaism and for the Jewish people. This again is from a religious standpoint. Moses is from the Holy Land. The Israeli tribes are from the Holy Land, but this is a religious grant. This is a religious order from God for Moses, the same way the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family was from Mecca, was from Quraysh, yet we believe he was ordered to claim Mecca as the capital of the Muslim state, the Muslim world, the Muslim Ummah. And therefore, we believe that the legitimacy of the Prophet Muhammad's claim over Mecca is multi-layered. One is that he is from the land, and secondly, the tribes of Quraysh that ruled Mecca submitted to him, and on top of that, he was ordered by God. The same applies to Moses. Moses is from the Holy Land. He was the head of the tribes at the time. He was the one being followed. He was their leader. The Torah was revealed unto him, and he was ordered to enter the Holy Land. He is indigenous, and his people were indigenous to this Holy Land. And on top of that, we have the overwhelming majority of prophets within Islamic thought, all the way from Abraham coming down to Jesus. And yes, we believe in Jesus. All of these prophets were Jewish prophets, and they were from the Bani Israel, from the Israelites. And therefore, claiming that the land does not belong to them, you have made all of God's prophets and their nations stateless. Therefore, the Islamist argument is extremely weak, whether you look at it from the verses of the Holy Qur'an, or you look at it from basic understanding of how the world operated at the time. It is our vision to see a peace between Muslims and Jews that is founded upon the truth, not founded upon politics. We want a peace that is genuine, that is everlasting, one that makes our father Abraham proud of his children, both the Arabs and the Jews. And I would like to mention that the recent developments, most importantly, the fatwa against Hamas that was issued by the Islamic Fatwa Council in March, has been received greatly by many states in the Middle East and many important leading organizations in the Middle East and the West that have been struggling to target the Muslim Brotherhood in a way that allows one to point the finger at Hamas. So yes, we know the Muslim Brotherhood is a designated terrorist entity in the UAE, throughout the Gulf, but to say Hamas itself, this was a precedent that has been set by the Islamic Fatwa Council. It was so important that the FDB weighed in. Again, if you haven't heard about this, please rush to Google and Google fatwa against Hamas. This just happened a few weeks ago. It's a big deal. This sets a precedent for holding Hamas accountable in courts across the Muslim world. It is Islamically binding. What makes it even more special is that the Fatwa Council is both Sunni and Shia. This is law. This is law. So you can't run away from law. And when it says you cannot join or donate or pray to Hamas, pray for Hamas or support them in any way, you've basically isolated them. And this weakens them and reduces their ability to fundraise within holy Islamic cities and have their charity boxes everywhere they go. And we see now they've been shown the door throughout Iraq whenever Hamas wants to come and present itself as the representative of the Palestinian people. They've been shown the door by numerous grand ayatollahs and their offices. I want to touch lastly, and I want to conclude with this, that the regime in Iran is making some progress in its view. We don't think it's progress. We think it's a danger that one should never deal with it. In a regime, no matter what happens, no matter what the relationship with America is, no matter what the situation in the region is, Iran, the regime should always be a red line. It should never be dealt with, should never be allowed any space to speak. This is a illegitimate regime. They have zero respect for human rights. I don't know how they sit on United Nations human rights committees, especially for women. They kill women in Iran and then hold women's fashion exhibitions in Geneva. Let's not waste time. The time is very valuable. And I think the Gulf states being pushed towards a relationship with Iran or restoring relations, it needs to be understood that Iran is not coming from a strong position here. Iran is coming from a weak position, but still it should not be in that position where it is given the time of day. We want this regime to go. We want to see a democratic and free Iran that is friends with the Jewish people, that restores stability to the region. Much of the conflict for the last 40 years between the Palestinians and the Jewish state is largely fueled by the regime and its propaganda and its Quds March and so on. I am more than honored to be here and to take your questions. I hope I was able to cover several matters during this short time, and now I'm at your service. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's an honor to have you with us. Andrea Spindellis, will Saudi Arabia give up on the two-state solution to achieve peace and join the Abraham Accords with Israel and U.S. backing, ignoring pretty much the Palestinian issue?
The Saudi Arabian view of this is that they will continue to advocate for the Palestinian right to have a state until they see there's no hope anymore. And we've seen this with the developments around the signing of the Abraham Accords, when Saudi Arabia was not even a signing party to the Abraham Accords, yet they came out in full defense of it at the time. They congratulated it. It came out in full defense. In fact, the former Saudi Arabian ambassador to Washington, D.C., released 3 lengthy episodes on Al Arabiya TV. Again, that's Bandar bin Sultan. The current current Saudi ambassador in Washington, D.C. is his daughter. He released 3 episodes on television justifying the position of the Arabs towards the Palestinians. And again, if you pay attention to what I just said, the position of the Arabs towards the Palestinians, because the Palestinians are not Arabs. The Palestinians do not descend from Arabian tribes. They are Arabized. The Palestinians are nations. They are the remnants of the Romans, of the Turks, of the Circassians, of the Gypsies, of the nations that ruled this land. And any Arab who is genuinely a descendant of the Arabian tribes who is living in the Palestinian regions, then he belongs in Arabia. He's indigenous, they're indigenous to Arabia. They're not indigenous to Judea. The Palestinians are Arabized. These things up. We have, for example, Arab Republic of Egypt. They're Africans. They're Arabized Africans because of the spread of Islam. They will never descend from the Arabian tribes in Yemen. It did not happen, will not happen. So let's differentiate. And this is very important because when they say the Arab cause, that means Saudi Arabia is responsible for the Palestinian cause, the UAE is responsible. But if we say, hang on, you are not Arab, you speak Arabic, you read Arabic, you probably speak Arabic better than many Arabs in Arabia, that's fine, but you are not Arabs in the sense that whatever you are involved in should involve the Arab world, especially when you go back and you stab the Arab world in the back after feeding you and protecting you and going to war for you for 70 years. So Saudi Arabia will keep going until it sees there's no hope. And right now, Saudi Arabia is on the verge where there is no hope, really. We see the dialogue between the Saudis and the Palestinians. One side gives aid, the other side insults them. One side gives aid, the other side takes the pictures of the Saudi king to Temple Mount and sets it on fire. So eventually, patience will run out, and you have Mohammed bin Salman, who is a young man, does not have time for any of this. He'll continue to maintain the Saudi position as the country of Mecca and Medina, the country that embraces the house of God and defend the interests of Islam. But if ultimately that is going to harm the interests of Saudi Arabia, then look, aid will come to you. We wish you all the best, but we can't continue keeping our interests hostage because you guys do not want peace. And as for a 2-state, Palestinians already have 3 states. Jordan is majority Palestinian. That is a Palestinian state. It's a state with Palestinians. The Jordanian king is a Saudi. He's not a Jordanian. Jordan is a new invention. The Palestinian regions before 1948 also exist in the area now known as Jordan. That is also a Palestinian state. Gaza is a Palestinian state. The Western Bank is a Palestinian region. What makes a state? What is necessary to make a state? You have a head of state, and you have the economy, and you have the military. These are the 3 essential needs for a country to call itself a state. There are countries that don't have armies, yes, but they have alliances with NATO and so on. All of these Ministry of Sports, Ministry of Health, these are not necessary to call yourself a state. So it's the economy, it's the military, and it's the head of state. And Palestinians have that in 3 different places.
Fascinating. Thank you so much. Just out of curiosity, how is your message usually received?
Well, my message prior to 2020 was seen as a super controversial. And now it's, well, if the Muslim states are on board, and it's normal. It's very normal. I'm the vice president of a council with 1,400 imams, Sunni and Shia, and I was voted in by a majority vote. So, and I haven't had any problems with my position at all. I still roam freely in Iraq, in the Islamic seminaries. Look, these are facts. What did I say today? Nothing that violates the Holy Quran. It's just facts and the verses of the Holy Quran. There's nothing to fear when you are preaching for the truth. And again, I'm a religious man. If I was to pass away today and I'm asked about my actions tomorrow, we have to behave as though every day is our last day. There's no room here to violate God in any way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So you mentioned the fatwa against Hamas and holding Hamas accountable in court. How do you think that'll affect the Abraham Accords going forward?
Well, the thing is, once you have courts, you have a court system, you have people in these countries who would support the Muslim Brotherhood and support Hamas. So yes, there are people in Saudi Arabia who support the Muslim Brotherhood and they are dealt with severely. Same for the UAE, and they are dealt with severely. But let's say you had a serious political opponent from an important family who cannot be dealt with as swiftly as a regular person could be. And they begin to make justifications for Hamas conduct. Once you have a fatwa out there and they are a Muslim, the fatwa is applicable to them. And it can be used to remind them that what you are doing is violating Islamic law. And this is very important because someone who cares about their pure Islamic message away from political Islam, pure Islamic message, does not want to be seen as violating the laws of God, publicly. Otherwise, it can do damage to their justice as a person, and therefore, without being just, you cannot lead. The fatwa is a very critical one. It's unprecedented. In fact, here's your answer from another aspect. When it was released, I was monitoring the Palestinian reactions to it. Ambassadors of the Palestinian Authority came left and right, and their toughest response was, we don't agree with it. None of them dared to say this is nonsense or it should be withdrawn. None of that, because Islamic law is Islamic law. This is not a bill that can be voted on. It's a decree, and the impact is already there.
Thank you. Daniel Pipe says, thank you for the fascinating and important presentation. Could you please comment on the Charter of Makkah?
Indeed. Firstly, I want to thank Daniel Pipes for his excellent work. I want to thank the Middle East Forum for organizing these very valuable webinars. If you support them, please support them more and support them again as I do. And I wish you all the best, Brother Daniel. Thank you very much for everything. With regards to the Charter of Mecca, it is something that has great potential, and I do not believe it has reached its maximum potential yet. There's much more room for this Charter of Mecca. Firstly, we need to take a quick look at who is behind it. The Muslim World League is an organization that is, firstly, it's a government entity, belongs to the Saudi Arabian government. It is the Muslim voice of Saudi Arabia. It has had a troubling history. They've made some serious changes, and now they are the face of what Islam should look like and should be, at least from a Sunni perspective. I have recently met with His Excellency Sheikh Abdul Karim Al-Isa, and Al-Isa has a vision. This is the Secretary General of the Muslim World League. He has a vision like no other Muslim cleric that I have discussed with and seen throughout the Middle East, and also because of his presence in the West in let's say in equal amounts as he is present in the Middle East, he's also in the West. The Charter of Mecca is something the Muslim World League is always pushing forward. Firstly, the name. We usually just mention the charter, but the name, the Charter of Mecca, the charter of the holiest city in Islam, the charter of where the house of God exists for Muslims. So number one, this is something of great interest to Islam and to all Muslims. Secondly, the Charter of Mecca paves the way for a peace that is in line with the Holy Quran and the Hadith in a way that is indisputable. There are many types of peace processes that can come from Muslims. For example, the UAE can put forward a peace path. We also have the Jordanians who can come up with a common word, kalimatun sawa, right? But they're not as powerful as the Charter of Mecca. Thirdly, the people involved in the Charter of Mecca, this coalition of Muslim scholars and rulers and the people who have endorsed the Charter of Mecca, make it a charter that is unique in its manner, and also make it a charter that anyone who has a vision for peace in a very near future, to abide by it, to apply it, to adopt it. And I believe that the Charter of Mecca was created in a way that allows us to say there's no need for us to keep pumping out charters. This is what we have. Let's focus on this. And it's something that is mainstream as well, which is important. You can have a charter that's very fringe. This one is very mainstream, and it comes from the Sunni world, which gives it greater value as far as the majority of Muslims are concerned. So I think that the Muslim World League is an organization that has transformed itself with great effort and strategy to represent an Islam that is compatible with 2023 and beyond. And not that Islam is not compatible, but when Islam is changed, when God's words are interpreted by Muslims living in 1990, Muslims living in the 1960s, Muslim in 1940s, you're going to get different interpretations. But when you have someone with the caliber of the leadership of the Muslim World League, and again, I used to criticize them a lot, but once I went and I saw and I felt and their genuine approach towards peace in the region and protecting the Muslim communities from the Muslim Brotherhood, from the Islamists, I began to value their presence. And I hope I was able to answer that question in some detail.
Wonderful. Thank you. And unfortunately, the time is.
It's 2025. America's debt is over $37 trillion, and the dollar just had its worst crash since 1973. That puts your savings and your family's future at risk. That's why we trust Alpha Omega Gold, a company that stands unapologetically with Israel and supports Stand Tall Israel. Visit ao.gold/stand to claim your free precious metals wayfinder guide, or call 1-855-426-4653 today. Protect your future before it's too late.